Zelensky say Putin is losing power. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian leader Vladimir Putin's power had fallen after the conflict in Moscow in June. "We saw Putin's reaction. It was weak," Zelensky told CNN in an interview recorded over the weekend and broadcast Monday morning. "All the vertical strength he once had was broken." Zelensky sent the Kremlin's response to the protests led by Yevgeny Prigozhin. Yevgeny Prigozhin is a former catering boss and powerful warlord who is trying to overthrow the Russian military authorities. Throughout the war, he publicly criticized Moscow's military leaders and blamed the authorities for the rising number of deaths among Wagnerian warriors. Although Prigozhin's plan was foiled shortly after it began, Russian intelligence discovered it days before it was used. The Wagner fighter was able to operate in Russia largely unfinished. "The truth shows a weakness in the Kremlin," Zelensky said. "First of all, we see that Putin doesn't control everything," said in an interview that will air Wednesday. "Wagner has penetrated deep into Russia, and in some regions, that shows how easy it is. Putin has no control over the situation in the region." Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the short-lived protests in Russia last month showed President Vladimir Putin's weakness and his decline among the Russian people. "The war will not end until the war returns all Russian-occupied territory, including Crimea, which Russia has occupied since 2014, longer than Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Years and 16 months ago. We cannot imagine Ukraine without Crimea. Even though Crimea is under Russian occupation, this has only one meaning: the war is not over," he said. Gazan's revolt was able to capture the army in 2 Russian cities, demonstrating how easy it was. He added that Ukrainian intelligence reports show that half of the Russians support Prigozhin. "Putin cannot control the situation in the region," said Zelensky. "All the vertical power it once had is gone." Progress. End of proof. Victoria Amelina, who went from Ukrainian novelist to war crimes investigator, died last month in Kramatorsk after eating pizza that was accused of Russian rocket fire on her family. Her salon and her work have been translated into English and at least 8 other languages. Ukrainian police reported that at least 10 people were killed and more injured in the attack. The head of the State Duma Defense Committee told TASS News on Monday that the withdrawal of Wagnerian mercenaries from Ukraine would not pose a risk to Russia's combat capabilities. Andrei Kartopolov said that the modern Russian army can replace them. Nuclear power plant backup power lines repaired but security not safe. Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant reconnected with only backup power lines after 4 months of failure, but Europe's largest nuclear power plant still leads the way. International Atomic Energy Agency Monday day he said it was too difficult and no security. Rafael Mariano Grossi said the dangerous security situation in southern Ukraine has hampered efforts to connect power lines. The ZNPP relies on the main line to provide the external power needed for the cooling reactor and other key nuclear facilities. Security and security features. The plant had been without electricity for several months and had 4 lines before the conflict started. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an exclusive interview, with CNN that Vladimir Putin's response to Wagner's military attack was weak, and that the Russian president had lost control of himself. The Putin regime faced the greatest threat in 2 decades when Wagner's army commander, Yevgeny Prigozhin, launched a brief protest demanding control of the military in 2 Russian cities and traveled to Moscow before accepting. Wake up. We saw Putin's reaction. He was weak, Zelensky told CNN's Aaron Burnett on the tape on Sunday. First, we see that you do not control everything. Wagner's ability to penetrate deep into Russia and seize certain areas shows how easy it is. Putin cannot control the situation in the region. Some Russians are delighted with Wagner's warriors as Prigozhin poses an unprecedented challenge to the Putin regime. The video, geolocated by CNN, shows Wagner's leader's car leaving the southern town of Rosondon on June 24. Tov. Reign Zelensky said that the reports show that the Kremlin is focusing on support for Prigozhin by requesting partial support for Prigozhin. The Russian president supported Wagner's leadership and the revolt by the military. The interview with Zelensky took place at a crucial time, not only after the failure of the Prigozhin coup, but a few weeks after the gradual liberation of Ukraine from Russia. The effort was followed by Western allies when a U.S. official told CNN on Saturday that CIA Director Bill Burns had recently visited Kyiv and met with Zelensky and Ukrainian officials. Zelensky told CNN he wasn't surprised that his meeting with Burns was getting media coverage. My communication with the CIA director must always be behind the scenes, he said. We talked about important things, what Ukraine needs and what Ukraine is ready to do. Burns is a former military diplomat who was a Christian interlocutor in Kyiv and went to Ukraine several times during the war. Said Zelensky. This situation is very simple. We have a good relationship with the head of the CIA, we're talking. I told him all the important things we wanted about the war. The U.S. official told CNN that Burns had gone to Kyiv before Prigozhin's attack, which was not the subject of the conversation. Reclaiming lands south and east of Ukraine, Zelensky told Burnett his ultimate goal is to liberate Crimea, which was annexed by Russia in violation of international law in 2014. We cannot think of Ukraine without Crimea. It has only one meaning: the war is not over, he said. When asked if there would be peace without Crimea, Zelensky replied, "It will never win."